During the 1800s and early 1900s, the Fox sisters started the rise of spiritualism, robbing people of their money just to give them some false hope that their dead loved ones were still with them. Harry Houdini, the famous daredevil and magician, quarreled with the idea and industry of spiritualism. He took issue with spiritualism and the psychic community and made an attempt to stop it with the House Resolution 8989 and the debunking of many psychics. While it is difficult to take a stand by yourself, that is what Houdini did. He left us with books and knowledge about how these psychics, these vultures, prey on the bereaved and how to prove it. The first signs of people showing clairvoyance, the ability to gain information about an object, person, physical event, or location through extrasensory perception, date as far back as the 15th and 16th centuries with Nostradamus and William Shakespeare. Nostradamus was said to be able to predict heavy rainfall and floods, among other weather events. This was the first time in recorded history of someone being accurate in such happenings. Shakespeare wrote many plays. One in particular, Macbeth, includes a man who talks to three witches who possess these clairvoyant abilities. These writings were powerful in starting to open the eyes of the public and spark the belief that there may be people with these clairvoyant abilities. More than 2 centuries after the Elizabethan era, 2 girls brought clairvoyance to the modern world and the next level. New York, 1848. 2 sisters, Margaret and Catherine Fox, had an idea. They wanted to trick people into thinking they could talk to the dead. First, they convinced their mother they heard rappings, such as loud noises or crashes. Their older sister Leo was not as excited about the idea at first, but once her sisters started becoming more popular, she quickly hopped on the bandwagon. The 3 became a trio, very popular for hosting seances for anyone looking to catch a glimpse of the other side. However, skeptics often exposed the sisters' ruses such as toe cracking, ventriloquism, and other mechanical devices. Yet, these girls still sparked the spiritualism movement. They hosted bigger and better seances, levitating tables and moving objects without touching them. They were known in the spiritualist community as mediums. Anyone who can communicate with the dead is called a medium. These girls, in 1888, admitted that they had been faking the occurrences the whole time. However, many people in the public already believed that what they were doing was real, and more psychics had come forward claiming they had these abilities. The religion of spiritualism emerged from this simple beginning, and its followers believe mediums truly talk to the dead and can prove there is life after death. The suspicion of whether or not spiritualism and clairvoyance were real only grew during the period between 1923 and 1929, when President Calvin Coolidge was in office. His administration was one of the leading reasons the public eye started to believe the occult, or the knowledge of the supernatural and paranormal, was in the government. This was because his wife had a personal psychic known as Madame Marcia. She was said to have predicted Coolidge's victory as well as his early death in office. This woman was a very popular medium during Coolidge's presidency. She held many seances for senators and their wives. This created an eerie feeling in the public as they saw more and more psychics in the government. This laid the groundwork for how Houdini would attempt to drive out spiritualism from the government. Born in 1874, Eric Weiss, better known today as Harry Houdini, would come to take issue with the growing belief in spiritualism during the 1920s. He started as a professional magician who is most famous for escaping from locked safes and breaking out of straitjackets. He was also known for debunking psychics. It all started when his mother passed away while he was out of the state. He never got to say goodbye, so he wanted to talk to her one last time. He went to a seance, but was disappointed when the psychic failed to contact his mother. This occurrence made Houdini very suspicious of psychics, but he still wanted to believe in them, much like his friend and fellow believer, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Houdini and Doyle both started attending seances and public talks with psychics on their own terms. They listened to lectures on what it meant to believe in these mediums. As Houdini and Doyle attended more and more seances and lectures, Houdini became more suspicious, especially since these events were taking place after World War I, an event which left many people depressed and bereaved. Doyle became more sure that what he was hearing at these lectures was real, however. Houdini and Doyle were separating. Houdini tried to convince Doyle that he was wrong, but Doyle didn't listen. Houdini got his start by debunking small psychic businesses. He and the police would go into a seance undercover. Then, once Houdini proved he could show the police the way the psychic was cheating by revealing their mechanisms or performing a certain action himself, such as toe cracking, the psychic was busted. Houdini began exposing bigger and better psychics. He spread the word that people needed to be cautious because many psychics were frauds just looking to steal their money. Houdini created his own bill. He called it the House Resolution 8989. It stated that any person proven to be faking clairvoyant powers was to be charged with fraud and subjected to a fine of $250 or face 6 months in jail. He went to Congress with this bill. This is one of his more notable attempts to make a difference. He stood in front of Congress and psychics with a sealed envelope. He said that anybody who could read the message inside the envelope was a psychic. However, anybody who couldn't would be arrested for fraud and face the parameters talked about in the House Resolution 8989. There was one senator on the committee who was able to guess the phrase. Houdini immediately wrote this off as a lucky guess. Houdini was removed from the premises, but this didn't stop him from standing against spiritualism. Houdini had other ways of debunking spiritualism. Possibly his most famous method was the Houdini Psychic Contest. This was a contest that Houdini held on his tours during the 1920s. After his main act, Houdini told audiences that if anyone could go on stage and demonstrate their clairvoyant powers 3 times in a row, and Houdini couldn't recreate it, that person would win $10,000. Many attempted, but no one was ever able to win the money. Houdini used his skills in sleight of hand and deception that he'd acquired from his years of training in magic to recreate perfectly the shaking tables or predictions that the supposed psychics made using physical features. For example, seeing that someone above the age of 50, a psychic can suspect that that person more than likely has some sort of dead relative. During one of these performances, a woman came forward claiming that the $10,000 was her money and that she could prove that she had clairvoyant powers, but she couldn't prove it. This woman was Madame Marcia. Anything she did, Houdini could do, so eventually she went as far as to predict his death. She predicted he would die before November of that year, which was 1926. Houdini died October 31st, 1926, one day before the month of November. Houdini's death didn't mean that he didn't make a difference. He left us with books about how psychics were fakes and the methods that they used to cheat the system. Books like The Unmasking of Robert Houdin and The Right Way to Do Wrong expose many psychics and tell how they created their so-called abilities. He also talked about the occult and how it needs to be shied away from since it evokes vultures like the Fox sisters to rob innocent people of their money, like he was robbed when he tried to contact his mother. Houdini changed the public eye to the government and the occult. This caused events such as the mass controversy over President Reagan's decision to trust a psychic. This caused the public eye to view the government as untrustworthy for a time. Houdini caused all of these occurrences in order to expose the psychics for what they really were, vultures who prey on the bereaved. While Houdini did change the way the public viewed spiritualism, he could not get rid of it completely. There will always be believers, which is why taking a stand is such a difficult thing to do. Even today, there are people that believe they have these abilities and can talk to the dead. People like Teresa Caputo, who has her own show as the Long Island Medium, and John Edwards, a famous medium and television personality. Even kids have these beliefs, with games such as Charlie Charlie, which involves using 2 pencils laid down, one on top of the other, to talk to the dead, as seen here.
Charlie, Charlie, are you an evil?
Games like this prove that what Houdini did couldn't affect everyone. Other games, such as the Ouija board seen here, are also ways to prove people still believe these powers are real.
What's my name?
Yet even though these people still believe these things, there are people who do not. such as Darren Brown, a famous psychic debunker and illusionist. Here's an interview with Darren where he explains cold reading, a famous technique used by many psychics.
Darren, could you begin by telling me what cold reading is and how it's used?
Cold reading, I suppose, is the way that a complete stranger can seemingly tell you everything about yourself without being psychic and without knowing anything about you. In essence, the cold reader or psychic is supplying a lot of words, and you as the sitter, the other person, is supplying the meaning to those words. And it relies on a lot of techniques. It's not really a question of forensic body reading and the sort of things that people might... It's not really normally even that clever. There are linguistic tricks which, unless you're aware of them, are very easy to fall for.
This proves that Houdini was able to make a difference by taking a stand against the spiritualism community. During the 1800s and early 1900s, the Fox sisters started the rise of spiritualism, robbing people of their money just to give them some false hope that their dead loved ones were still with them. Harry Houdini, the famous daredevil and magician, quarreled with the idea and industry of spiritualism. He took issue with spiritualism and the psychic community, and made an attempt to stop it with the House Resolution 8989. And the debunking of many psychics. While it is difficult to stand by yourself, that is exactly what Houdini did, and he left us with books and knowledge about how these psychics, these vultures, prey on the bereaved and how to prove it.